Namaste. So tonight I'm going to read Book 9, Chapter 19, on the going of the Devas to Vaikunta after Tulasi's marriage with Shankachuda in the Maha Devi Bhagavatam. Om Vakaratu Namaka. Om Hari Om. Hari Om Tat Sat. Narada said, O Bhagavan, wonderful is the story that has been now recited by you. My ears are not satisfied, so tell me what happens afterwards. Narayana said, O Narada, the Creator Brahma, blessing them, departed to his own abode. The Danava married Tulasi under the Gandharva method. The celestial drums sounded and the flowers were showered. In the beautiful, lovely house, the Danavindra remained in perfect enjoyment. Tulasi, too, being busy with fresh intercourses, became almost mad after them. The chaste Tulasi and Shankachuda both became deeply immersed in the ocean of bliss in their sexual union and began to enjoy 64 sorts of amorous sports. In the sastras on love affairs, on the connections of limbs with limbs that are described as the lover and the loved desire, they both enjoyed those with perfect freedom and pleasure. The place was solitary. To add to it, the scenery was grand and lovely. So nothing remained untasted of the several tastes of amorous pleasures. On the banks of the river, in flower gardens, they slept on the flower beds smeared with sandal paste and enjoyed the amorous pleasures. Both were adorned with jewel ornaments. Both were skilled in amorous practices, so no one desisted. The chaste Tulasi, out of her nimbleness due to young age, easily stole into the heart of her husband. Shankachuda, too, a great expert in knowing others' amorous sentiments, attracted to the heart of Tulasi. Tulasi obliterated the sandal marks from the breast of the king and the sign of tilak from his nose. The king also wiped away the dot of cinder and alaka, vermilion marks from Tulasi's forehead, and put marks of nails on her round, plump breasts. Tulasi also hurt the king's left side by her bracelets. Then the king bit the lips of Tulasi. Thus each one embraced the other, kissed each other, and each other began to shampoo the thighs, legs, etc. When both of them thus spent their time in amorous sports, they got up and began to dress themselves as they desired. Tulasi smeared Shankachuda's nose with red sandal paste mixed with kumkum, saffron, smeared his body with sweet-scented sandal paste, offered sweet-scented petals in his mouth, made him put on celestial garments, fireproof, brought from fire, put onto his neck the wonderful garland of parijata flowers, destructive of disease and old age, invaluable jewel rings on his hands, and offering him excellent gems, rare in the three worlds, said, O Lord, I am your maidservant. And uttering this repeatedly, bowed down to the feet of her husband with devotion. She then got up and with smiling countenance began to look on his face with a steadfast gaze. The king, Shankachuda, then attracted his dear Tulasi to his breast and took off the veil fully from her face, began to look on that. Next moment he kissed on her cheek and lips and gave her a pair of garments brought from the Varuna's house, a necklace of jewels, hard to get in the three worlds. the tinklets of Swaha, the wife of Agni, the Keyura armlets of the sun's wife, Chaya, the two earrings of Rohini, the wife of the moon, the finger rings of Rati, the wife of Kamadeva, and the wonderfully beautiful conch given by Visvakarma. Excellent bedding studded with pearls and jewels and various ornaments. And when he gave her all these things, he smiled. The king then put garlands on Tulasi's braid of hair, nicely variegated alakas on her cheeks, 3 crescent lines of sweet scented sandal paste within the alakas, dots of saffron all around that, the brilliant sindura mark looking like a flame, and red alta on the feet and toes. He then placed those feet on his breast and uttered repeatedly, "I am your servant," and then held her on his breast. They then left the hermitage in that state and began to travel in various places in the Malaya mountain, in mountains after mountains, in solitary flower gardens, in the mountain caves, in beautiful sea beaches, on the banks of the Puspa Bhadra river, cool with watery breeze, in various rivers and riversides, in Vispandara forest, echoed with sweet songs of the birds and the vernal season. They then went from Vispandana forest to the Surasana forest, from the Surasana forest to the Nandana forest, from the Nandana forest to the nice Chandana forest, from Chandana forest to Champaka, Ketaki, Madhavi Kunda, Malati, and Kumuda, and lotus forest. Thence they went to the forest of desire, gratifying trees, Kalpavriksa forest, and Parijata trees. They then went to the solitary place Kanchan, thence to the Kanchi forest. They then went to the Kinjalaka forest, thence to the Kanchanakar, the gold mine, thence to Kanchuka, and various other forests echoed with the sweet sounds of cuckoos. Their own beds strewn with flowers and scented with sandal paste, they both enjoyed each other to their heart's content, and with great pleasure, but none of them, whether Shankachuda or Tulasi, got quenched with their thirst. Rather, their passions were inflamed like the fire on which clarified butter is poured in sacrifices. The king of the Danavas then brought Tulasi to his own kingdom, and there in his own beautiful garden house he incessantly enjoyed her. Thus the powerful king of the Danavas passed away one Manvantara in the enjoyment of his kingdom. He spread his sway over the Devatas, Asuras, Danavas, Gandharvas, Kinnaras, and Rakshasas. The Devas, disposed of their realms, wandered everywhere like beggars. At last they united in a body and went to the Brahma's assembly, and there they began to cry and then related the whole history, how the Danava Shankachuda oppressed them. Hearing all this, Brahma took them to Shankara and informed him of the whole history of the case. When Mahadeva heard all this, he took them all to the highest place, Vaikunta, devoid of old age and death. Going towards the first entrance of Narayana's abode, they saw the gatekeepers watching the gate, taking their seats on jewel thrones. They all looked brilliant, clothed with the yellow garments, adorned with jewel ornaments, garlanded with forest flowers, all of Shyama Sundara, dark blue, very beautiful bodies. They were forearmed, holding on their hands conch, mace, discus, and lotus. A sweet smile was on their faces and eyes beautiful like lotus leaves. On Brahma asking them for entrance to the assembly, they nodded their assent. He then, accompanied by the Devas, passed one by one 16 gates and at last came before Narayana. On reaching there, he saw that the assembly was completely filled with Devarishis, and four-armed Narayan-like Parisadas, attendants, decked with Kastuba jewels. The sight of the Sabha assembly makes one think that the moon has just arisen, shedding effulgent rays all around. By the will of Sri Hari, excellent diamonds and valuable gems and necklaces of gems and jewels were placed at various places. At other places, rows of pearls were shedding their splendor and brilliance like the garlands of gems and jewels. At others, the mirrors were placed in a circle, and at various other places, the endless, wonderful, artistic picture lines were drawn. Again, at other places, the jewels called Padma Ragas were artistically arranged as if the lotuses were there spreading their lustrous beauty all around. And many other places, rows of steps were made of wonderful Siamantak jewels. All around the assembly there were the excellent pillars built of Indranilam jewels. All over those pillars, sandal leaves strung on strings from the pillar to pillar were suspended. Golden jars, all brimful with water, were located at various places. All around, the garlands of parijata flowers were seen. The hall was decorated with sweet-scented sandal trees, red like saffron and musk. Sweet scents were being emitted all around. The Vidyadharis were dancing at places. The assembly hall measured 1,000 yojanas. Countless servants were engaged all over on various works. Brahma, Shankara, and the other gods were there. Sri Hari seated in the center on an invaluable jewel throne. As a moon looks surrounded by stars, there were the crown on his head, the earrings on his ears, garlands made of wild flowers were on his neck, and his body was smeared all over with sandal paste, and he was holding Kalipadma, a sort of lotus, in his hand. He was seeing with a smiling countenance the dancing and music before him. He was full of peace, the Lord of Saraswati. Lakshmi was holding gently his lotus feet, and he was chewing the sweet-scented betel offering offered by her. Ganga was also fanning him devotedly with a white chamara, and the others were singing hymns to him with their heads bent low with devotion. Brahma and the other gods all bowed down to him. Their bodies were all filled with pulaka, excessive joy causing hair stand on end. Tears flowed from their eyes, and their voices were choked out of emotion. The Creator Brahma then, with clasped hands, informed him, with head bowed down, of the whole history of Shankachuda. Hearing this, the omniscient Hari, knowing the minds of all, smiled and spoke to Brahma all the interesting secrets. O Lotus-born, I know all about Shankachuda. He was in his previous birth my great devotee, an energetic Gopa. Now I speak to you the ancient history of Goloka. Here, this story about Goloka is sin-destroying and highly meritorious. Shankachuda, in his previous birth, was the Gopa Sudama, my chief Parisad attendant. He has now become a Danava on account of the dire curse pronounced by Sri Radha. One day, when I went from my abode, accompanied by Viraja Gopi, to the Rasamandala, my beloved Radha, hearing these news from a maidservant, came up at once with her whole host of Sakis wrathful to the Rasamandalam ball dance in Goloka, and not being able to see me, so Viraja turned into a river. She thought that I had disappeared. So she went back to her own abode with her Sakis. But when I returned to the house with Sudama, Radha rebuked me very much. I remained silent, but Sudama could not bear and he rebuked Radha in my presence, a thing quite intolerable to her dignity. On hearing this rebuke, Radha's eyes became red with anger, and she immediately ordered her Sakis to drive him away. Sudama began to tremble with fear. Immediately on her command, lakhs and lakhs of Sakis got up immediately and drove that hot, irresistible Sudama away. Sudama repeated his chafings and roarings. On hearing these, she cursed him. You better be born in the womb of a Danavi. Hearing the terrible curse, Sudama bowed down to me and went away crying. Then Radha, who was all merciful, became melted with mercy, and she prevented him repeatedly, now go away. Radha wept and told him, O child, wait. Where are you going? No more you will have to go. Return. Thus saying, she became very distressed. The Gopas and Gopis also began to weep. I then explained to them, in about half a moment Sudama will come back, fulfilling the condition of the curse. O Sudama, come here when the curse expires. Then he appeased Radha also. Know that one moment Ksan in Goloka is equal to one Manvantara on earth. The yogi Shankachura, expert in Maya and very powerful, will soon return from the earth. Take this my weapon, Sula, and go early to Bharata. Shiva will slay the Danava by this Sulastra. The Danava holds always on his neck my auspicious Kavacha and will therefore become the conqueror of the universe. No one will be able to kill him as long as he holds the above Kavacha. So first of all, I will go to him in the form of a Brahmana and ask from him the Kavacha. O Creator, thou also didst give him the boon that his death would occur when the chastity of his wife would be destroyed. I would go and hold intercourse with his wife, then his death will occur without fail. His wife, after her death, will come and become my dearest wife. Thus saying, Narayana gave over to Mahadeva the Sulastra. And then he went gladly to his inner compartments. On the other hand, Brahman, Rudra, and the other devas incarnated themselves in Bharata. Here ends the 19th chapter on the going of the devas to Vaikuntha after Tulasi's marriage with Shankachura in the Mahapuranam Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharishi Vedvyasa. Om Jayanti Mangala Kali Patra Kali Kapali Durga Kashma Shvita